Okay, 20 seconds and you go. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all again in the second session of webinar from the area of entrepreneurship. I, Dr. Shikha Bharadwaj from ILM Graduate School of Management, welcomes you all into this session. And today we have with us Mr. Romesh Sharma. Mr. Romesh Sharma is the founder of Simplifier Solution, a technocrat with a very rich experience of giving solutions into insolvency and now coming out with a lot of things into technology as well. This session aims at considering the changes which are happening during COVID. In fact, it is the time wherein we say that all of us are coming out with new normal, even the entrepreneurs, even the students, even faculty, each one of us, teaching fraternity, industry, manufacturing, everybody is coming out with a new perspective, new normal. And that is what is the theme for today. Our today's theme is taken from the concept that is it a black swan time which is going on, or it is something which we have to come out like white rhinos. What is the perspective we should pick up with, and how we feel that economy is going to go ahead? There are a few suggestions which in the talk will be taken by Romesh sir, and by the end of the session we'll be opening with the questions. I would like all of you to give your questions. It is being streamed at YouTube channel of ILM GSM. You may drop your questions and we'll pick up the questions in the end. And looking forward to have an interesting session with your interaction and with the examples which Romesh sir will be going to share. So sir, over to you now.
Okay, thank you, Shikha. Thank you very much. Let's get going without much introduction. Could you please share the material that we would be discussing about? So since the time that we are living in, and the last thing we want is the next nuisance, and this first slide is just to take care of that next nuisance, to avoid all that. So all the material that we'll be discussing, we don't own it, and what we own is the intelligentsia which is in our minds, not what is on the paper. So there are materials and there are data documents where we have picked up from the most authentic sources, and the due credits wherever was available has been extended. If anybody feels any reservations, more than happy to amend it. So having said that, let's get to the next. Okay, so the kind of world that we are living in at this point of time, and this is perhaps the appropriate thing, we need to look beyond the white coats. I think all of us have grew with a particular image on the white coat, and today we are kind of scared. But the life doesn't come at the end. We have to move beyond. And for next 20-25 minutes, how I'm going to do is, I would be speaking something around 20-25 minutes, 30 minutes kind of thing. And then we will open the session for the question and answers, and thereafter to go in whatever directions the discussion moves. So taking forward, let's move to the next. Now, this is something which attracted my attention. I think 3 months back, people were planning for summer holidays in the Europe. People were planning for summer vacations with the kids. The education industry, the tourism industry, and everything was gung-ho, including the so-called intelligent people in World Bank and IMF and all these institutions. They were talking 7% growth and this technology on the boom and this change, that change. But perhaps nobody, at least I'm aware of, could predict that all of us would be would be locked down for months together in around the world. So as the joke goes, I think no astrologer could predict this. So this is just a kind of depiction of the situation that we are in. Let's get to the next one. And this is the new parlance that you would be seeing. Passport stamps in 2020, a friend of mine sends me this. So this is the kind of movement that we are having, from bedroom to bathroom to Facebook to kitchen to Zoom meeting to webinar to WebEx, all these things. So that's the kind of world that we have, we suddenly found ourselves in. I am yet to meet a person who's had planned for it or who would have been prepared for it, or the least who would have welcomed this. Let's get to the next one. Also, last 3 months, the people's creativity is at its peak, and that's what the jokes keeps coming. That Einstein invented the theory of relativity while in quarantine. Isaac Newton looked about the gravity while he was still in the park in isolation. So there are new advisories which are coming up, and that's the kind of I leave this. No point on reading all that, but. The message what I want to send is that all of us grew up with certain assumptions, certain bases, and all that has gone out of the window overnight, without any warning, without any preparation, and without any alarm. So that's the kind of situation that we find ourselves. Divided we live, united we die, and perhaps this is the state of the affairs that we are in. Let's get to the next one. So here's the time. I think it is 3 months down the line on the lockdown, and almost 5 months down the line since the COVID-19 virus was first detected. Let's pause and then see what happened. So one of the things, and this is the theme that I picked up. Some of you might have read this book, Hillary Rodham Clinton. She wrote when Trump got elected. And like nobody had expected that the Trump would be the next president of the United States, nobody has expected that we would be in the situation that we are in. So this resonates in the kind of 2016, what happened in US is what happened in 2020 in the world. So we are all grappling on what happened. The second thing is one of the other point which has come up is we are not invincible. So as the message was sent into the theme, almost invisible virus, the tiniest of the species, has challenged the most mightiest of the species and then put us on the lockdown. Now, this is something we have seen. The world has seen the pandemic. The world has seen the crisis, but never at this scale, never of this magnitude, and never of this ferocity. So we are not invincible. So that is the kind of situation we find ourselves. That the whole macho, all powerful. We talked about going to Mars and nuclear and all those kind of things. All of a sudden, we find ourselves scared of a kind of amoebic creature, which is putting every assumptions of ours to the test. So that's the kind of situation we are in now. Let's get to the next. When the humanity find themselves, or we look at what has happened. Now, these are some of the pictures which have been picked up from around the world. I wanted to pick up some from New Delhi and Mumbai as well, but apparently we couldn't be successful, because nowhere I could get the pictures without either the cops or the migrants, and that is not the purpose. Unfortunate, but Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, all the places that I tagged my friends, couldn't find any single picture which was so lonely. The Paris and Vatican and New York and the theater district of New York in this shape. It was not designed for this. It is not planned for this, and so this doesn't get any lonelier. And it is from Sao Paulo to New Delhi to Sydney to any part of the world. This is it. We have never been more lonelier than this. Let's get to the next one. Are you with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So let's see. One of the common thing that we hear from almost everybody nowadays is this is a black swan event, and a black swan event means we cannot prepare for it. This is not likely to happen, but this does happen. And just to put something in the perspective, Dow Jones is supposed to go beyond plus minus 7% once in 300,000 years, as per the statistics. In the last century, it has gone 28 times. Well, that is the statistics. So we talked about black swan events. So which are the black swan events? So we have black swan event of Black Monday 1987 stock exchange. We had the black swan event dot-com bubble. We have the black swan event of 2008 financial crisis meltdown. So plenty of black swan events. Now the point is this a black swan event? Now many people may or may not agree. But by definition, a black swan event is a short-term crisis and a long-term opportunity. Perhaps it is little too early whether we are in a short-term crisis and are we in a position to see a long-term opportunity. So I think I'm not convinced that it is a typical black swan event. So if it is not a black swan event, if it is not something that we have been trained for or prepared for or are equipped to deal with, what is it? Let's get to the next one. So there are few things, few phenomena that are depicted in this. We talked about the black swan, which is limited to the market. Now we also talked about the gray rhino, an economic risk which we choose to ignore while being aware of the harms. So perhaps 2008 meltdown or 2001 dot-com bubble, or even 87 Black Monday comes to a kind of great rhino. We knew asset bubbles was building. We knew the balance sheets are leveraged. We choose to ignore it. We also are looking from a kind of elephant in the room, because when we talk of elephant in the room, we knew that pandemic is on the cards. Bill Gates warned it a few years back. George Bush acted on this and pleaded to the Congress almost when he was still the president. And it is not that this has happened now. We have seen the bird flu, we have seen the Ebola, we have seen the swine flu, we have seen the mad cow disease, we have seen MERS, so Middle East respiratory disease. So these diseases were there. Now, question is, the elephant was in the room. We choose to ignore it. So if we choose to ignore the elephant in the room, we had accepted the gray rhino to be the reality, and we are not prepared for black swan. So where we are? Is it a camel in Antarctica? So what if you put a camel in Antarctica? It would be lost. It would have no clue. It is designed, developed, or evolved to manage the deserts, not the not the ice, not the snow. So it is something that we don't know. So whatever name we give, whether black swan, gray rhino, white elephant, whatever it is, we don't know what it is. And so let's get to that thing pretty straight, that we don't know where we are. Let's get to the next one. So as I mentioned, and my apologies for this sheet, it's a little too narrow, but I have given the link there, history of pandemics and the deadliest. People who might be interested in getting into the details on their free time. But the message is, we were caught unprepared, yes, but unwarned, perhaps not, because we have been warned of the same family of the virus SARS-1 in 2002. And novel coronavirus is the same family. Only thing is, it took 10 years to come with this ferocity and to spread so widely. Perhaps the word was not as interconnected, as interdependent as it is today. And therefore, the effect or the impact was limited of SARS-1. But those who have suffered SARS-1 and survived would realize that it is no different. So that we were warned time and again. MERS, Middle East respiratory disease, we had the same kind of challenge, but we again choose not to prepare for this level, this scale, and this contagious disease. So that's where we find ourselves in. Let's get to the next one. Just to continue on the same thing, even this sheet is from World Economic Forum 2020, as recently as in January 2020, Davos. This is one of the issue. If you carefully look on the left-hand side, the red square, it talks about the infectious disease as one of the top 20 risks globally available. So even WEF indicated this. Only thing is they put it in the magenta color, not in the green color, or not in the red color. But infectious disease was something which we were all embracing for it. Perhaps, as I said, not at the scale, not at the consequences that we face in, but it has not come unannounced, put it this way. Let's get to the next one. So now, with this background, where we are in a situation where we are facing a health crisis which has resulted in economic paralysis in perhaps one of the most polarized times that we have lived in recent years. And this combination is unmodelable. This combination is unique. This has never happened in the history of mankind. The humanity has survived far severe pandemics, far severe financial crises, far severe wars and cold wars and physical wars. But the combination of the three has never happened. And because it has never happened, it is not modelable. And because it is not modelable, we don't know. We are all panicked. From the head of the state to the migrant labor, to the maid servant, to the taxi driver, to the student, to the kid, to the housewives, everybody, and from Africa to Australia to America, everybody is confused. What does it reflect? And again, this is a friend of mine says, Corona did not break the system. It exposed the broken system. We choose to ignore the sensitivity or the attention that the healthcare deserves, the society deserved, the precautions that we were supposed to take. And now we are blaming a bad and a weak market in one for all the nuisance all over the world. I think all of us share some responsibility for the nuisance that we find ourselves in. Let's get to the next one. Now, when I say it has shown a broken system, this chart, again from howmuch.net, it reflects China, one country, second largest economy, but they are making 4 trillion of manufacturing, whereas the next largest country, India, is 412 billion. The next kind of most powerful or perhaps even more powerful country like United States has only 2.3 trillion. The Japan is 1 trillion. Industrialized economies like Germany, 806 billion. So this imbalance was in making. It has been made, and it has been made by choice. It has been made by corporate greed. It has been made due to the short-term gains. And this equilibrium was bound to fail and bound to create the cracks. And as the thermodynamic students would realize, the entropy, it keeps on going up, and at certain point it blasts. And this is unfortunately the trigger point. So if the 4 trillion manufacturing is in the China, this is bound to create ripples all over the world, as is reflected on the chart. Let's get to the next one. Again, we did some exercise in terms of different economies, and if you look at between say 1992 to 2016 and 2050, US continues to be number one from 92 to 2016, but not in 2050. And China, which was nowhere perhaps in 1992, it was 9th largest. It became second largest. Now it is second largest, and very soon it is going to be the largest economy. And this is the kind of shift that is happening. And as my friend Dominic Barton used to say, there is a center of gravity which is shifting. The economic center of gravity is shifting from west. It has, if you look at the Greenwich Mean Time and the evolution of the economy in the organized manner, it started from there when we talked about Europe being the hub, and then it moved to the west, and then it moved. Finally, now it is coming to the east. So that's what is happening. And these are some numbers more in detail. 60% antibiotics, 60% cement, 70% mobile phones, 75% of global solar. Now, if this is the kind of situation, what are we complaining of? Let's get to the next one. This is again some statistics. A shame that in 21st century we are struggling to find $139 that requires for 2 weeks of quarantine for basically for stocking of food. So on one hand we talk of 88 trillion global economy. On the other hand, we are struggling for $139 per person. This is US. In India, perhaps it would be even 3,000 bucks if you go to purchase power parity. So as a country which is aspiring to be the superpower, if we are struggling to provide 3,000 bucks, 5,000 bucks for individuals, I think we need introspection, serious introspection. Let's get to the next one. Okay, so on continuing what happened overnight, again without any preparation time and with due respect, with perhaps 4 hours notice period, our homes have been converted into 24/7 classrooms, 24/7 hospitals, 24/7 kitchens, 24/7 playgrounds, 24/7 offices. And the homes were not designed for that. And we have absolutely no clue how do we manage. So on one hand, work from home looks the new buzzword. I'm yet to see a family who altogether enjoys all these kind of things doing simultaneously. So I think this is something which will continue, but not forever, and not in the size and the manner that it is in. Let's get to the next one. So with this, I think next is what? That is a question we need to ask. And there is a link, and people can watch this nice advertisement on the Samsung where they talk of what is coming. So let's get to the next one. Now, this is the new age advertising. And these are the real advertisements, not the memes. So when Nike started saying just do it at home, I think it speaks of the volume. The McDonald's for the first time, these are self-depicted. Starbucks putting the mask on the girl shows the bond between Audi is no longer what it is. Let's get to the next one. So all this has happened, and has happened almost irreversibly. Like it or not, the world is not going to go back to what it was in December 19 or January 20. How it would be, what it would be, perhaps we don't know. But what we know is it is not going to be what it was. And if it has happened, what about you? You as an entrepreneur, you as a leader, you as a responsible person in a responsible position, what is it that you need to be aware of and take care of? Let's get to the next one. So what we are doing is we'll put this into some kind of different buckets. So one of the bucket is that we will see definitely a geopolitical shift. And while you see the five big powers in the background, please be careful of noticing the emerging powers. And when I say powers, it's not only in terms of economic power or in terms of the might of military might or technological might, but in terms of leadership might. I think Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of the New Zealand, has come out like a hero for the way she has managed her country. Hsien Lee, Singapore, has shown what a leadership means in crisis, how to be transparent, how to be clear, how to be confident, how to be spreading the hope while accepting the reality. And so is the case. Swedish PM Arvon has now acquired a kind of cult status. People talk of China model, people talk of US model, and people talk, or Europe model, and people talk of Swedish model. And so is the case with the Taiwanese president, who, in spite of being next to the nerve center, has managed her country in perhaps the most commendable manner. So you would see there is a significant geopolitical shift taking place fairly quickly and much beyond the might, much beyond the size, more in terms of the reality. Let's get to the next one. Also what is happening is, again, social reconfiguration. And here, if I could be little particular about the Indian situation, I think we are in for a revolution, hopefully positive revolution. The urbanization, the rural economy, the relationship between an individual and the state, the relationship between employer and employees are all going for a major shift. And it is not only in terms of the economics, it is also in terms of security, it is also in terms of safety. And a very nice book I might recommend, Third Pillar by Raghuram Rajan, where he talks about how people have to negotiate the contracts within the family, within the society, within the state. I think that's something we really need to be careful and perhaps be a little ahead of the curve. Let's get to the next one. Now, one of the things that has happened is the third bucket where I see technologies on the steroid. Now, if you look at all these sales projections or the growth projections of all these companies, it is not that it was not planned for. What is the situation is it was not planned at this speed and with this so fast. So if you look at the Zoom's projections or the projections of the WebEx or even the TikTok, and they all expected to grow. They are designed to grow, but what they expected to achieve the level in say ranging from 2028 to 2035, the level of automation, the level of remote management, the level of technological advancements has happened in 3 months, and perhaps whatever is left over will happen in next 12 months. So technology is on steroid, and what has happened on this is that today, irrespective of which sector you operate, what business you are in, which geography you are in, you just cannot afford to ignore the technology. You have to embrace the technology and you have to leverage the technology. There is no other option. Whether it is robotics, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, anything and everything, it has to get onto, you have to ride on the bandwagon of the technology. And irrespective of whether you are Haldiram serving the fast food, or you are Boeing making the aircrafts, aeroplanes, and defense equipment, and anybody and everybody in between. And going forward, let's get to the next. This is a question that we asked again, picked up from McKinsey when they worked out how technology is safeguarding health and livelihood in Asia. And very nice article, I would recommend everybody to read. But I think these are the three very important questions all of us, irrespective of, as I said, we might be in the healthcare business or we might be in the hospitality business. We need to ask how are we going to go for take advantage of the technology. It is no longer nice to have or only for big companies. I think more so for gig economy, for individual people. I think I individually has learned far more in last 3 months than I did in 3 years. And I'm not the only one. I think more and more people are like me, or so I would like to believe. So these are the three very good questions, important questions people should ask themselves, their teams, and the ecosystem that they operate in. How compatible it is. Let's get to the next one. So we touched a little bit in terms of geopolitical shift, how the leadership geopolitical shift is taking place. But I think leadership is also going for a significant change. And what does that mean? That leadership change. I think in terms of crisis, again, I go more in terms of the books. There are few books and which one can read from the titles. But in terms of leadership, what is necessary is in the crisis, there are few basic fundamentals that leaders have to adopt. And my apologies, but when I say leader, these are entrepreneurs and leaders both. Because at every beyond certain point, I think entrepreneur has to be a leader first, and it has to be a next form of leadership. More than the title, more than the influence, more than the authority, it is the spirit of the leadership that we talk. And that is the spirit of entrepreneurship. So when I use the word leadership and entrepreneurship, it is for the limited purpose of this session, they are interchangeable. So looking at very quick one, I think few characteristics that leaders and entrepreneurs have to get on in crisis mode. One is you have to offer credible hope with brutal honesty. You have to accept the situation that as it is and explain to your team, to your stakeholders, to the ecosystem that you operate in, where you find yourself in. Now, don't be too vulnerable because people look up to you. But on the other hand, don't pretend to be invincible. A little bit vulnerability is okay to exhibit. Little bit worry is okay to exhibit, and it is that is the only way you get the better ideas, you get the better inputs. So offer credible hope with brutal honesty. Except, and I strongly recommend you watch the way Singapore Prime Minister address or their Singapore citizens when we talk of how we are going to address COVID situation. So that's very important. Be hopeful because this will get over. Be confident that this will get over. The best of the minds are on the job. We soon will find a vaccine. Before that, we will find a cure. It will happen. We have survived. The humanity has survived far more severe crisis, and this will also be survived. That's not a challenge. The point is keep the hope. But hope is not a strategy. Hope is good to offer, but strategy is necessary to act. So I think what is most important is you have to have a strategy. How do you overcome this current situation? And how do you capitalize on when all this is over? One fine day we would be discussing in perhaps much more congenial environment on how did we survive that. But would we be prepared at that point of time to capitalize on the recovery? Because recovery would be far more challenging than the survival during the crisis. Because during the crisis, when it comes to survival, you have far more control in your hands. You can cut down the expenses, you can cut down the cost, you can reduce the exposure, you can do many things that are in your control. But when it comes to recovery, we don't know whether it would be an entire alphabet has been generated on the recovery, V shape, L shape, U shape, W shape, all kinds of shapes have been generated, but nobody knows what shape it could come. Are we or would we be in a position to capitalize on that? That is the question. I think we must invest heavily so that we should be able to capitalize on as and when it happens. Let's get to the next one. Now, this is, if this picture gives you some hope or some kind of things as likely to emerge, it was, we talked about famous hugs and famous handshakes of all the leaders at all the forums. Look at, this is G20. If the most mightiest of the people are locked in their respective places and can't come around, who are we? I think this should offer a hope for tomorrow. And at least I take it as a very inspiration. If these guys can manage, I think we have far less at stake and far more to enjoy. I think let's get to the next one. Now, continuing on the same thing. I think two messages that I would want you to guys have. You have signed for entrepreneurship. You have signed to be an entrepreneur. You choose to be an entrepreneur. And what does it mean? At least it means that you choose to be brave. You choose to be decisive. You choose to be in control of the destiny that you aspire to be. And if that be so, there is no point in giving up now. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And it is not because I am saying it. It is because it is true. The fact that you are hearing, the fact that you have joined the session proves that anybody and everybody who is on this webinar is personification of this statement, nothing else. Now, if that be true, then what can I suggest you? What can I advise you? You are smart guys. You are smart people. There is little that I can advise, except that with the white hairs, no hairs, and more years behind than ahead, from the experience, which again on a qualification that this event is non-modelable. But all these disclaimers, I think at this point of time, speed and uncertainty are the new normal. You have to be bold. You have to act now. You will be flooded with tons of data, tons of information. One of the things that at least I have in my office, don't listen to the naysayers. And in the age of WhatsApp universities, graduates and postgraduates, you get all kinds of, this vaccine is there, and if you do this, you can survive COVID will not come to you, and this is the new cure, or this is the new technology. No, I think you will be flooded with the information. Critical thing is take bold decision, but rational decision. And besides speed and uncertainty that is given, I think one of the characteristics that you all need to develop is being able to be staying agile. I think agility has been taught for many years, but like many things, it has been expedited because of the COVID challenge that we are all facing. That you have to be far more agile than you ever been, because if you are not, somebody else is. And there are, when the lockdown gets over, if not on 31st of May, at some point it will be over, and we will all be there to see when it is over. In whatever shape, size, form it gets open, it will be opened up. The fact is that some lights, see, locking down is kind of, switching off the lights. So we did switch off the lights. When we open up, be careful. Some lights would never come back. The migrant labor that who has moved away from a cement factory and gone back 600 kilometers to his village is not going to come back. Some industries are not going to come back. I don't want to mention them for the purpose of sanity, but some industries are gone for good. So some lights would never come back. Some lights would come back dimmer, but some lights would come back far more strongly, and they will outshine the existing lights. Point is, which side of the lights you would want to be. That is very important for you to choose, that are you ahead of the curve or are you behind the curve? Because you will no longer be behind the curve, you will be below the curve, and you know what happens to those who stay below the curve. They are buried 6 feet down under. And all you see is an engravement that here lies this XYZ great company. And Wall Street is the classical graveyard of indispensables. You can see once great companies are no longer there, just because they choose not to be moving with the times. So I think with this, we are almost done, and perhaps my parting message would be, it has happened. Let's accept this has happened, and is shed the tears, mourn the event, mourn the losses, pause. And as Tom Friedman says, human brain is the classical organ. A computer, when you pause, it stops. But a brain, when you pause, it starts. So I think it is the time that we mourn the incident, mourn the COVID, pause, and then start thinking, pivot, and move forward. So it is a time to pivot, move forward with more strength, more willpower, and more commitment. My very best wishes, and all the very best. Happy to respond to any query that may come. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think it is the way you have connected it to the overall impact and the way we should look into this is not only from the perspective of an entrepreneur, but also as a leader, also as the citizens, also as people who are contributing into different industries. So very nicely put across all the points, sir. So we started taking questions. The first question which has come up is, as you know, that when we talk about entrepreneurs, there is always there's always a saying that entrepreneurs were never been into a comfort zone. They were always being confronted with risk and challenges. So whether it was something else earlier, whether it is now pandemic, they are continuously into that array of taking up the challenges and answering them. So with the present scenario, there are two set of thoughts which has emerged, two school of thoughts. One, stating that this is the time of crisis. Let us identify the ways to come out of it. Cash has become closer. Financial stability has become again very dear. And another set of entrepreneurs who have come out with this school of thought, looking at it as an opportunity. So how do you interpret this situation, sir? And not only as an individual, but also as an entrepreneur, how do you foresee changes in your business now because of these things which has happened?
Okay, I think great question, because entrepreneurship is always, if you are not adventurous, you cannot be an entrepreneur. So that's okay. But sometimes you take you take onto the field. Sometimes field takes onto you. But the thrill is same in both the cases. So that's absolutely fine. Entrepreneurs are, and my saying on this is, they are the people who are comfortable while being uncomfortable. So that's the trait I define the entrepreneur. And the second thing I go is, you should opt for entrepreneurship only and only when you just cannot not do it. Otherwise, there are many safer, far more comfortable journeys in the life, which are perhaps far more rewarding. But you need to be crazy. You need to be a little bit. वो थोड़ा हिला होना जरूरी है. Otherwise, you just cannot. And like Steve Jobs typically say, we must be thankful for those people, because those of them who thought they are different have made the difference. To respond to your point as a crisis, I think crisis always brings great opportunities. Point is, are those opportunities for me or against me? So we have to figure out, how do we go and capitalize on those opportunities. And as I mentioned, few traits: speed, agility, take more risk. Cash, unfortunately, fortunately, is now the determining factor, and I don't want to get onto that, because I think everybody has by now understood cash is the queen and the king and the queen and the knight and the bishop and the pawn and the chessboard. So whatever you call it doesn't make a difference. But I think important is capitalize on the opportunity, and don't look at, I am good at this, so I should not be doing that. You have to see what you are good at, and you have to find your core competence. And your core competence is not that, say for example, your core competence is not education. Your core competence perhaps could be communication. Your core competence could be bringing the platform. Your core competence could be knowledge sharing. Your core competence could be, so spread your core competence. I ask yourself what you are good at. Maybe like some of the classical examples I see is from bureaucrats and the ministers, our politicians. Now what is their core competence? Today they are the minister for petroleum, and tomorrow they would be minister for HRD, and they would work on both the functions with equal effectiveness. And the reason is their core competence is getting work done, and that is what I say the entrepreneur is all about. Get the shit done. There is no other way. And if you are good at that, look at you might be excelling in say for example a mobile app for healthcare, and today you find that this space is not available to me. Move to some other, instead of mobile app, go to some other app, go to some physical app, go to something else, but get the work done. Look at the opportunity. What is today? Capitalize on it and move on. So for me, this is a great opportunity. And as I said, since you asked me my individual, I have learned in last 3 months far more than I learned in last 3 years. And the things that I thought I should be doing one day, this Microsoft Teams, I have been paying subscription for last 3 years, never used it, and now I realize that I can do it. So it's a kind of maybe eureka moment for me as well. But that's where I would take it. Hope it satisfies.
Absolutely, sir. In fact, very interestingly, it's when we were into our lockdown 1.0, around 9th of April, there was a news which came from Financial Express, and it actually took my attention because I wanted to know your perspective into it. And that news says, "Small time heroes: colon, how entrepreneurship in India hinterland is becoming the new normal to startup culture." So how do you see it now? I mean, we do feel that there is always established category of entrepreneurs. There are new emerging in this era only. We also know that the smaller setup of heroes are coming out. So what is your interpretation out of this situation and how it is going to come out?
Okay, so a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, with the movement of the people from urban centers to the rural,
Yeah.
I see it is not only that the labor shift or a skill shift, it is entrepreneurial shift as well.
Right.
And the reason I see it, and I'm very hopeful and I'm very optimistic of this, they are the people who move to a new place with nothing. A labor from Odisha or Sambalpur in Odisha or Bhagalpur in Bihar or Gorakhpur in UP went all the way to Chikmagalur or Chennai or Bengaluru with no set of skills, with no assets, and established himself or herself there.
Right.
In whatever shape, size, manner he or she has done it, but he or she has established. Now, when they are going back, I see a huge improvement in the entrepreneurship in the rural India. So, and this again, as I said, this is an opportunity, and a lot of tier 3, tier 4 towns, tier 5, so-called towns or municipalities will see the entrepreneurs pretty much mushrooming. And having said that, this should also be a cause of worry for people who are in the so-called startup hubs, because these hubs are no longer going to be hubs. We are gone into the spoke model now. So it is no longer hub, it is the spokes. So you will find, and with the technology availability and affordability that we see now, somebody sitting in Bulandshahr can be as effective to respond to a washing machine problem of a customer in Toronto as somebody sitting in Delhi. So I see a lot of, and particularly, and we see this being in Noida. Other day I was discussing with one of my friend, and he mentioned this IT sector. Noida has two major IT and textile. So lower level IT, a lot of people have gone back to their villages because they could not survive in this situation, and many of them may not come back, because if they can work from their home, they would not even coming back. So I see it's a very positive boost for entrepreneurship is spreading. I think it would spread across the geography of the country. Again, there would be some and here again the opportunity lies for the states and the districts to provide the conducive environment. Those who can provide more conducive environment can reap the benefit in the long term.
In fact, this brings me to the McKinsey report, sir, which came out with the title that Navigate Within the Business. And they have suggested that there are 5 stages that any business can navigate within whatever they are existing upon. There are 5 stages during this pandemic. So resolve, resilience, return, imagination, and reform. This is how they have predicted, and they have given few examples of small players as well. But there's an interesting question which has come up, sir, wherein the viewer is asking that we are hearing lot of news on big restaurants in Delhi facing financial trouble, and they are coming up with strategies where they ask you to pay now and redeemable coupons will be given to you. In your opinion, do you think this strategy is good or it is workable? That's the question.
Okay, so first to respond to your that McKinsey report, with this, they are 5 hours. I have replaced the last hour in my own limited wisdom and challenge the McKinsey that the last hour is not right place. It is not reform. We are into the age where we need to transform. So it is not reform. You need to transform. The incremental thing is no longer going to work. But that pausing that leaving that where it is. Reform is not enough. I think we need to transform, and this relates to the question that this guy asked, and I think very relevant question. The restaurants are facing challenges. They will offer all kinds of goodies to retain. Basic question is, and here I want to be very in all seriousness. How many customers would be willing to order the restaurant food in next weeks or months?
Right.
I think that is a question that restaurants have to ask. And the way I see is again interacting with some VCs. The restaurant business will go for a transformation. We will be looking for more in terms of cloud kitchen. We would have to look for contactless delivery. We would have to look for new ways, which I don't know. I'm not expert. I don't know. But what I know is that traditional Bikaner wala chole bhature is not going to be the order of the day, at least for next several months. Much as we enjoy that, and two things happened. I think all of us have become excellent Sanjeev Kapoors, and
True.
So that need has gone, is met. So just to sum it up, I think whether it is restaurant business or even other businesses, similarly, like like a movie theater. Why would you go for a movie when you have to go for the sanitization before you enter the theater, and you can't sit next to somebody, and then you are scared of who sat on the chair before you sat. So they also have to look for something transformative. They need to figure out something different. So the way I see it, and I would quote here Satya Nadella, when he mentions that we have to address unarticulated, unmet needs, and the time is now. So giving coupons may or may not work, but it is not sustainable. You need to figure out something else. Apologies to disappoint the person, but that's what I believe.
Right, sir. In fact, there is an interesting question which one of our peer member who is viewing the session has asked. Is it possible without government intervention for rural areas, given the infrastructure and interoperability capabilities, that we can go ahead with it?
See, possibility is one thing, but feasibility is, I think, what we need to address is the feasibility. So whether it is government intervention, whether it is government support, whether it is the atmosphere, ecosystem, whatever we talk, I think government has to do a lot. I don't want to comment on, because I don't have the data, whether they have done enough, whether they should do more, whether they could do more. Everybody is strained. But circling back to my deep philosophy on entrepreneurship, I have, when I started, and I always believed in that, we must develop a business in spite of the document, in spite of government, not because of government. So I should do anything and everything that I can on my own, and thereafter everything comes is a support. So to point blank answer, I expect the government to support. I expect the support to pour in from non-governmental sectors as well. But I think this interoperability, interconnectivity, interchangeability will have to, it will have to develop on its own. There is no prescription that Niti Aayog comes up with, or Make in India, Startup India. I think we need to do something on our own and then see where we can leverage ourselves.
Right.
We are not China.
Yeah, this is the last question. And there are actually 2, 3 questions on the similar line. So I'll put it together and then I'll ask you. So the question is that when we say today's scenario is to reflect, pause, and reset, that's how everybody is talking about. So, what would you suggest as the meaningful strategy to be adopted or to be taken um, as a way ahead to the educators, students, and the entrepreneurs? So, what should be the new reset meaningful strategies for them? And if there is any specific skill set, especially in perspective to our students, which you feel that should be worked upon, what should be that?
I think quite a few. But if I can put in the same three buckets that you identified for educators, for students, and for entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs here, I would like to restrict on the entrepreneurs who are interested in education sector per se. We can expand the portfolio later on. But I think on the educator parts, the strategy has to be, uh, and sorry if it disappoints to some, and it would disappoint to some. Uh, but I think today the situation is where competence would outweigh the credentials. So you really cannot say that I am so and so. You have to deliver. There is no way that you can say I am from this institute, or I am this institute, or I am this. No, this was in the making for some time. It has expedited, but people are questioning, and I myself in the thick of the things, people are questioning of why to spend $200,000, $300,000 for expensive MBAs in the United States. Why should we be going for MBA when they don't get the jobs? So so I think for educators, they have to massively transform. And there is a nice session on TAI on this where they talk of technology in education. I think what we are doing here, you have to do it more, and you have to do it more along with what you have been doing in the past. So it's going to be a hybrid model. You have to drastically question the cost. You have to be drastically asking, why should a student pay you, even some cases you may have to pay for a student to come and learn from you. So nothing is off the table. Have very drastic questions to your own existence. You have to recalibrate, and this is irrespective whether you are in the education sector or any other sector. Recalibrate your purpose, why you exist. A lot of bankruptcies, and when I say it as an insolvency professional, a lot of bankruptcies are on the way from the educational institutions. They are there. They won't find enough students. As far as this is from the educator's perspective, so learn more, share more, be cheap, be very economical, be very affordable, and you will get onto that. For the students, my statement would be the time is gone when you could be in 4 years of engineering or 2 years of MBA and set for next 40 years of career. You have to go back to universities and the schools and the finishing schools and keep on learn, relearn, up and unlearn. So that cycle continues. With this current situation, I think the frequency would be far more, intensity would be far more. So you might have learned a particular app or developed an expertise on a particular language in last 1 year, and 6 months down the line you realize that company doesn't exist. So you need to get to the new one. Not your fault, but you are the consequences. So that's as far as the students are concerned. You have to continuously learn, and don't think that I am MBA, so why should I need to know law? You need to know law, you need to know sociology, you need to know the psychology, and you need to know the politics. There is no way that you can avoid. This is not my field, unless you want to be working in NASA or ISRO kind of thing, where your word starts and ends in the lab. So that's unless you are of that nature. For the entrepreneurs, uh, my only statement would be, don't be brutal to yourself. Don't be too brutal to yourself. It has happened. It was not of your making. You are a collateral damage. Sun will shine again tomorrow. Uh, the beauty is there in the eye of the beholder. Look at what are the opportunities. And as I said, we talked about of, the iceberg model that we share. Uh, for the entrepreneurs or the current COVID situation, this is something like iceberg. At iceberg, you see what you see is 10%. What you can see is what you can see is perhaps 20%, but what you can't see is 70%. So what we are seeing is cash flow problem. What we are seeing is health crisis. What we are seeing is medical emergency. What we are seeing, this is only 10%. What we can see next 3 months kind of thing is that 20%. What I'm saying is in terms of technological upgradation, or in terms of redundancy, or in terms of movement, or whatever it is. But 70% below is where the opportunity is. And as they say, it's only when the tide retreats, then the rocks starts shining. So be the rock, you will shine, and keep your eyes and ears open. The opportunities are plenty, but you have to move your ass off. There's no shortcut. You have to struggle. You have to be struggling for long time, and better start enjoying it. As I say, you have to have uh, you have to prepare for a sprint and marathon simultaneously.
Yeah.
You have to have a microscope and a telescope, one in each hand, without getting the headache. That's the art that you need to develop. I think that
Okay.
satisfies.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. I think very well put across to all the perspective. However, the person who have asked this question was actually asking in the perspective of manufacturing sectors as well. I presume that he is either an entrepreneur or a student. So,
Okay,
yeah.
just to respond on manufacturing sector, manufacturing is going to be something like, for manufacturing, it is like James Watt steam engine or industrial revolution movement. We will see more and more robots, more and more artificial intelligence. And I can see, I deal some of the people who are now talking of remotely attending to your machines, not only gas turbine and aircraft engines, but also your air conditioners. So
Right.
you really have to get into that artificial intelligence. It is no longer a choice. It is no longer nice to have. For a manufacturing, you need to cut down your manpower by 30%. Not because the government said, because that's the only thing you can afford. B, you
Right.
need to look at all the cost that you are incurring, and perhaps ask zero-based budgeting. Cut down by 20-30%, because that's the additional cost that has come up now, sanitization and clearance and. So that has to come. You cannot pass it on to the consumer, and leverage the technology. Use technology to the extent it is available.
Right, sir. I think I am frankly speaking, when I gather all the information which you have shared, I must compliment the way it has been put across, sir. Especially the unprepared and unwarned thing. I mean, very well said that we are somewhere unprepared, but it was never been unwarned. And yes, the anecdote which you have given as an example, that it is more like a switching off our lights. So we are switching off lights. After some point in time, we will again switch on our lights. Few lights will go off, few lights will be dim, and few will be shining more high. Presuming that every one of us who has been a part of this session and who has been hearing to us is actually those lights which will shine brighter. And this is all a part of our journey, preparing ourselves more equipped with the changes which are going to happen. Again, once again, on behalf of ILM, sir, thank you so much for joining us today for this session. And I'm sure this would have given a lot of perspective to the students who are yet to join PGDM program, or already into this program, or peer members, educators, a lot of people who would have heard it. And it gives a lot of strength and support, because we understand the perspective from all the stakeholders. So you, somebody who's having a organization on his own, talks about that, yes, there is a hope, don't feel that ways. Actually builds up a lot of faith in the overall ecosystem. And once again, thank you so much, sir. And hopefully once the campus gets open, we shall see you again back to our campus. And thank you, sir. Thank you so
My
much.
privilege. Thank you very much. Thanks, Atan.